Chapter 7 is about hypothesis testing, and arguably it's the more important of the two chapters 6 and 7. And in these two chapters we're focusing on a single variable that we're measuring and learning how to analyze that in different ways. So let's go to the book and see what it says about this. Page 267, upper right hand corner. In estimation, we try to find what value a parameter might have. Okay, so in chapter 6 we estimated the population mean or the population percentage from a sample. And we estimated with a confidence interval. We can use estimation in other ways. We can estimate a population standard deviation. We can estimate regression coefficients. That will make more sense in a later chapter. But in hypothesis testing it says we try to find out whether a parameter is equal to a particular value of special interest. So in chapter 7, hypothesis testing is a little more direct, and the way we will do it, our hypothesis test, we're going to compare a sample mean or a sample percentage with a number of special interests. It could be some kind of standard, maybe it's a national standard we're comparing it to, maybe we're comparing our sample with a control group's sample, something like that. Anyway, it's a little more direct in manner of statistical inference. Well, before I attempt to introduce this all with an example, I want to draw an analogy or a parallel between what we're doing in hypothesis testing and our United States legal system. So, because I think it works pretty good and may help you to relate somewhat to that. All right, so I don't know how many of you have ever gotten to serve on a jury. I've served on 2 juries. One a civil case when I was about 18 or 19 years old, and another was a criminal trial here in Hillsborough about maybe 14 years ago. I was a jury foreman for that. Very fascinating. Well, in our legal system, criminal trials, what is the basic assumption at the beginning of the trial? It's that the defendant is innocent until proven guilty. All right, so we have an assumption: innocent until proven guilty. Now, what's on trial here is the person's guilt. And what's the standard of proof for guilt? Well, the phrase is beyond a reasonable doubt. So, guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Now, what does that remind you of? Guilt beyond reasonable doubt. What confidence level is that? Let's tie this to statistics. Confidence level. This is about 100% confidence, isn't it? So we are very cautious in our country when trying to convict someone of a crime. We only convict someone if with 100% confidence. Guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Now, we can't reach 100% confidence in statistics. We're going to have to settle with something more like 95%, and that will be fine. So that is a kind of a difference there. But innocent until proven guilty. And what is the purpose of the trial? Well, the prosecutor attempts to produce evidence that will prove guilt. And so the burden of proof is always on the prosecution. So the evidence presented must be sufficient at a certain level of confidence in order to prove guilt. And so that's what it is. Now what are the guilty? What are the 2 outcomes to a criminal trial? Well, you are either found not guilty or you're found guilty. So there are two outcomes. Now, here's something pretty important. There's not a verdict in the United States legal system called innocent. Okay, that there's no attempt to prove innocence normally in a civil trial. In a criminal trial. Now, I could be wrong about that. I think there are trials in which innocence is established, and to a degree that the defendant gets off. So, for example, if you can produce a rock-solid alibi, a couple witnesses saying, well, you were in this town when the crime committed was in another town at the same time, that would pretty much be tantamount to innocent. But when a verdict is reached in a criminal trial, it's either not guilty or guilty. And not guilty means what? Not guilty means that there was not enough evidence to prove guilt. Could that person still be guilty? Absolutely. Absolutely could be guilty. So it is possible, it happens in criminal trials, that defendants are given a not guilty verdict. There may be some doubt in the jurors' minds about that, but there was not enough confidence beyond reasonable doubt to prove guilt. So, give you an example. I don't know if you are old enough to recall well the O.J. Simpson murder case, and a very, very big thing on TV back in the mid-90s, I think it was. And the jurors in that case, when they acquitted O.J. Simpson of murder, gave him a not guilty verdict. The jurors, when interviewed afterwards, said, well, we think there's a pretty good chance he killed that lady, but we were just enough doubt, we didn't convict him. So even the jurors, even though they did not give him an innocent verdict, there's no innocent verdict in our system, but they declared not guilty, it didn't mean they believed necessarily that he was innocent. It's just that there was not enough sufficient proof in their minds to convict him and send him to jail for murder. So anyway, that's pretty much how it goes. Now, in the jury trial I served on as jury foreman, the two charges, one was gross sexual imposition on a girl under age 13. That means he touched her inappropriately. It's pretty serious. The second charge was attempted rape. Very serious charge. Well, we had a split verdict. He was guilty on the touching the girl, gross sexual imposition. He was not guilty on attempted rape. So, now, evidence was very strong on the first count. He practically admitted it in court. But on the attempted rape charge, evidence was very thin in court. Not very much. It was a very weak case. So we thought, well, maybe he did, but probably he didn't. There was plenty of room for doubt there. And so actually it was fairly easy to arrive at that verdict of not guilty on the attempted rape charge. So, but here's what's important. He did not establish his innocence in court. Did not prove innocence. And so that is a downside to our criminal trial system. If you go to a civil criminal trial, you're not there to prove your innocence. And so it doesn't mean that you're going to convince everybody that you were innocent. There may be some suspicion that you did the crime, even though you may get a not guilty verdict. So anyway, all that ties in with hypothesis testing, believe it or not. So I'm going to draw these parallels to our hypothesis testing with the legal system as we work a problem here and introduce it. All right, well, I'm going to erase the board, find a problem in the book, and we're going to work through it real slow. Going to talk our way through it, work the problem, and this will be sort of our introduction to hypothesis testing.